Good Thursday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready for a 1 o'clock game against the Buffalo Bills. Scheduled to be in Buffalo, where there's supposed to be a lot of snow. Still up in the air whether it will in fact be played in Buffalo or will they move that game to Detroit. The Bills do have a Thanksgiving Day game, so it probably will not be moved off of Sunday to Monday as it has been in the past when there have been a lot of snow and they have moved games. All right, some news out of Berea. David Njoku back on the practice field and working for the Browns. Catching a pass there from Jacoby Brissett. Jordan Elliott, Perrion Winfrey were not on the field. No reason given yet as to why. Jack Conklin worked on the side. Anthony Bell with a concussion. Michael Dunn with a back. Not practicing today. Deshaun Watson was getting some work in here, working out with Anthony Schwartz. So Watson kind of getting integrated little by little, able to be back on the field practicing with the Browns. The Buffalo Bills, we get word out of Buffalo that Josh Allen really didn't do much throwing, was pretty much limited as it snowed a little bit there, not fully throwing again, so he would likely be limited. The good news for the Bills, though, a lot of the guys that were out due to illness yesterday did come back to practice, although Tremaine Edmonds, Gregory Rousseau, Jake Kumro still missing. They also list Isaiah McKenzie as somebody who did not practice, but you see a number of the defensive guys were able to go after missing yesterday due to illness. Joel Bitonio talked today about the attitude of the Browns despite the struggles they're going through.
We have faith that we can get the job done. You know what I mean? Like, if we play our game and we execute and you know, play well, we can beat teams in this league. And I think there's a pride in the group too. Like, no one's like, oh man, this is done. Like, you know, you play every game to win every game, and that's our mindset. You know what I mean? And we have a huge test this week. They're one of the better teams in the league. But you know, I've sensed no like doubt in people's mind. You know, it's just like, hey, we have to go out there, we have to play better, we have to execute, and you know, start some practice and having a great week of practice.
And with that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, the host of Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, what do you? I mean, we keep hearing that there's not the guys aren't down, the locker room is still good. What do you make of this? Are the Browns' playoff hopes dead? I mean, at the very least, they're on life support.
I mean, if they don't win this week, like, the idea was, hey, you needed to split these next two games, and Buffalo's probably going to be the toughest one, so you wanted to get it against Miami. So now this is the one you got to get. If you don't get this, you're at 7 losses, and it's going to be very, very tough to climb your way back in there. Now, it's not impossible. Pittsburgh did make the playoffs last year in the AFC at 9 wins. I would think that they probably would have had a better conference record than what the Browns can have right now. But it is possible to sneak in there with 9 wins. We'll see. I think the ideal that this team should make the playoffs, though, that's dead, right? Like, we're no longer at that point of the year where we think the team should make the playoffs. Now it's like, hey, can we make the playoffs? And that's just, if you're a professional doing this, you just got to figure out the new angle to hit it at to make sure that you can stay motivated week to week.
Yeah, and you do mention that. So let's take a look at this. This is from Pro Football Focus. It's an AFC playoff chances leverage. So a win would put the Browns' chances over 10%. A loss, and it gets really, really close to 0. It's like at about 2, maybe 1.5. So, again, it kind of is where you're at right now. The obviously not where anybody thought you'd be at going into the Bills game, but it's where you're at.
It depends on who you ask, too. Like, some people thought this team would be a disaster without Deshaun Watson. So it is weird. And also, yeah, if you lose this game, you're not technically eliminated, but that's when your playoff hopes become completely mathematical, which means they're theoretical, right? Like, 35 things have to happen. 2 teams have to tie 3 weeks in a row, and then you get in. That's not playoff hopes. That's just not being mathematically eliminated. So, yeah, I mean, everything's on the line for them this week as far as what they can achieve this season. We all know that this team, as much as they wanted to win and achieve as much as possible this season, a lot of the emphasis when they made that trade in March was going to be about next year.
All right. Can the Browns, and you've addressed this on Untitled and Unfiltered Browns coverage, can the Browns beat the Bills in Buffalo? Can they do that?
It depends on what defense shows up, right? Like, that's the big question. We've been talking about, is there going to be snow? Is this game going to be played in Detroit? That does not matter to me. What does matter to me is what Browns defense shows up, right? Are we going to get the defense that showed up versus Cincinnati and Baltimore that played pretty well and was able to handle the run? Or are we going to get the defense that showed up last week and in other games that's embarrassingly bad? We got to figure that out, which defense is going to show up. Because let me tell you something. We may think the snow is an advantage, but the ideal of trying to tackle Josh Allen in the snow when we struggle at tackling at times, that's terrifying, right? Like, they have things that are hard to tackle, too, in Buffalo. They have more things that are hard to tackle. I don't imagine Stephon Diggs is easy to tackle in the snow. I just don't imagine that Gabe Davis is easy to tackle in the snow. So, like, the snow is not going to save you from a bad defensive effort. Yeah, if you're the Browns, they're not going to equalize things. So you still need that defense to show up. Will Nick Chubb be able to get things going on the ground? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, they still have a very good defense there. Like, it's still going to show up in the snow. The snow is not going to equalize things. The play on the field is, and that's going to be all dependent on how this defense shows up this week.
All right, Joe Woods talked about adjustments and customizing that defensive game plan.
You always try to put your playmakers in position. So for us, that's part of what we game plan. Trying to get certain guys one-on-one, whether it's pressure, trying to get guys certain one-on-ones if they're matching up in man coverage. So we always think that way. I think that way in terms of the game plan. And then during the game, it's just you're making adjustments off of what's happening to you. You know, what you're struggling with, things that you're doing well, try to do more of it. So we have our meetings, we do our presentations. At the end of meetings, we go out 15 minutes early and we walk through. So first, second down, we go out and walk through. Third down, on those days we walk through. And then we have our normal walkthrough period after that where we run plays against our scouts. And then we have a 10-minute period where we're free defensively where we continue to do walkthrough. Then in practice, we have 2 install periods where we go and just walk through stuff defensively. And then we also have the opportunity at times after our meetings. So there's 4 or 5 opportunities that we've been doing all season, just walking through different things.
And Quincy, they gotta figure that out pretty quickly.
I mean, if it ain't figured out by now, it's just gonna be an unsolved mystery at this point, right? Like, we're too deep into the season to figure things out. What's left to figure out? The problems are not that they don't know what to do. The problem is that they don't trust each other. And that's a problem that you can't just solve overnight, right? If I don't trust somebody to be where they're supposed to be, and then I think I got to hedge my play to be somewhere else where I'm not supposed to be, then somebody else sees me not being where I'm supposed to be, think they got to be somewhere they're not supposed to be. You see the domino effect that not trusting one player can lead to on an entire defense when you don't have that trust. It just breaks the whole thing down. And that's what's happening with this team. They don't trust each other to be where they're supposed to be. Nobody is trusting, and for a good reason, because they have not played well for everybody to do their job correctly. So now some people are trying to do other people's jobs, and then other people are seeing other people doing other people's jobs, thinking they got to do more jobs than they got to do. And now it's a complete mess. This is how bad defense happens in the NFL.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time this afternoon.
Hey, this is Keith calling from Worcester, Ohio. Love the show. Thanks for what you guys are doing. So I'm asking this question. Do you think we are at the place again where we have a culture issue, a culture of winning? It seems like we brought in players that had the personality, the attitude to shift the culture to be a winning culture, like Jarvis Landry. And now it seems as if we have great players, but we don't have a winning culture. Is there anything that we can do to bring players in that carry that? Again, thanks again for what you guys do.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, you know what? you don't talk about winning culture unless you start losing. Winning cures a whole lot of things.
Well, this reminds me of a conversation, and I'm going to sound like Colin Cowherd when I say this, so forgive me. But this reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody who used to play in the NFL. And we were joking around about different cliches about what you have to do in broadcast because he wanted to get into that. And I was like, yeah, the one is like, hey, if you're a player, you're down 21. What do you think? Like, how do you stay motivated in the game? And he told me, well, it really just depends on who the quarterback is. And that's really the thing, right? When we talk about winning culture, you don't see a lot of teams with winning culture with no quarterback, right? Or no figure that is representative of the success of that organization. When we talk about a winning culture in Pittsburgh, we're talking about Mike Tomlin. Right at the end of the day. So the people on the sideline look over at the sideline and say, hey, we got Mike Tomlin. We're going to be all right. And they believe in that. They buy into that. Mike Tomlin does a great job with that. And they're able to compete week in, week out. The Browns have no such figure, right? You look at the 2 years where you can say the Browns might have had something. Well, the 1 year the Browns might have had something of a winning culture is when it was the 1 year we actually believe Baker Mayfield was like really good, right? That's when we felt like he had the culture. It's about who you have on the sidelines at the end of the day. You can have a really talented group, but if you don't have those people at key positions with that level of success, then you're not going to have a winning culture. And that's why they traded all that money for Deshaun Watson, so that dudes can look on the sideline and feel like, hey, if we're down by 10, we got Deshaun. We can come back into this game. We see this in basketball with the Cavs when LeBron was on the team. Down 3-1. We got LeBron. It doesn't matter. We're coming back, right? Like, that's how it feels when you have that guy. It's not a special trait. It's not something you can learn. It's something that you have to have in the people on the sideline or on the team. And that's why those guys are paid a ton of money, because that's the effect that they have on the team. We'll see if Deshaun Watson has that effect. If he can play at that level to where everybody can feel like we're going to be elevated, we're not going to have a chance to lose simply because we have this dude. But we all know this factor, right? We've all played pickup basketball or some sport where we realize, oh, we got the best guy out here. And all of a sudden, when you feel like you got the best guy out there, you're playing the best defense you ever did, right? Now you out here setting screens and being a team player. Now you out here finishing rebounds. We've all been there. It's about who you have on the sideline and if you believe you have one of the best players on the field. When you feel like you have that game changer that can change it no matter what, it's why Tom Brady teams never lack for ability to come back, because they look over, they see 12, and they go, well, he's done it a bunch of times before. Why not us, right? It's reasonable to believe that when you have Tom Brady on your sideline. That's what a winning culture is. You're not going to sign guys like Jarvis Landry and get a winning culture, because nobody's, like, no disrespect to Jarvis, but nobody was looking at Jarvis Landry at the sideline saying, oh, man, we got Jarvis. We coming back from 14. That's not how that worked. So that's what it takes to have a winning culture. It takes time. It takes years of success. Look how much success Mike Tomlin had to have. 2 Super Bowl victories early in his career and then never having a losing record. It takes years of success, time, and it takes flat out just having some of the best players on the field. And Mike Tomlin had both. That's how he built it. And it took forever for him to build that. So that's what it takes. It's not quick. It's not going to happen overnight.
Before we go to break, some breaking news. The game has been switched to Detroit. So the game has been moved to Detroit, according to Mary Kay Cabot from cleveland.com, as well as Plain Dealer. Not a surprise. There could be power outages if they're getting 2 and 3 and 4 feet of snow. So, and the Bills play Thursday. So this is not a surprise. They will play. They will play on turf. So there you go.
Yeah, so now the game's going to be neutral site, basically. Detroit's. It's weird because the lakes here, it feels like Detroit should be closer, but I don't know who has the closer path between where that lake area ends and to get to Buffalo from there. Somebody who's better at maps has to tell me that. But that's going to be interesting to see how people are able to get the game. Obviously, the snow is not prohibitive to leave the city of Cleveland right now. It feels like it is for the city of Buffalo. And again, this is why I said the focus should never be on the snow. We focus so much on the snow. The snow is never the focus. Focus is which Browns defense is going to show up, because we are capable of beating the Buffalo Bills in a dome without snow. We are. It just depends on what defense shows up that week. That's really it. The one nugget of hope I'll give everybody is that the Browns defense plays better against run schemes that don't rely a lot on misdirection. And the Buffalo Bills absolutely don't. The reason they can't run the ball is because they don't scheme runs well. So I don't expect them to be able to dominate on the ground. But, still got to defend Josh Allen. Still got to tackle Josh Allen. That's the problem with the Bills. That's why they're the Bills. You got to tackle Josh Allen. He's not easy to tackle. He's very hard to tackle. That's why the Bills are very good.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue talking Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
When we talk about Joe Woods' defensive schemes and the issues that it could have, majority of the scheme is dime packages, which primarily I feel like the whole NFL has caught up with that. And if we're going to have a defense coordinator running that 4-3, we can't be in the big dime packages all the time. We have to switch to nickel.
Quincy, your thoughts just on that one?
Yeah, the Browns run a lot of nickel already. They run a lot of it. And they've actually had to come out of it to try to stop the run, get into their base sets. The problem with their defense, I don't think it's necessarily the packages that they come out in. When you look at the Browns, you see a team that can be misdirected very easily. And I think that boils down to people not trusting what they're supposed to do and trusting what their teammates are supposed to do, which is leading to a lot of blown spots. Again, as much as the schematic things have ruined things early on, I think those things have now turned into a deeper issue, which is nobody trusts each other. And like I mentioned before, when nobody trusts anybody to be anywhere, nobody's going to be where they're supposed to be.
Fair enough. Joe Woods today, when he met with the media, was asked just about all the criticism that he's hearing about the way his defense is playing.
It's part of the business. You know what I mean? And like I said, for me, you can't let it affect you. You can't ride, the emotional roller coaster. I know what type of business I'm in. It's a fair business, but we're in the business of winning. And right now we're not doing it. So, that criticism is going to come. It's deserved in some instances. And I promise you I'm trying to do everything I can to get the thing turned around. But we have to execute and we have to play better on game day.
And Quincy, let's start this conversation by nobody goes to work and says, how can I mess this up? But it just doesn't. There seems to be some sort of mismatch between what he's asking the guys to do and what the guys on defense really want to do and feel like they do well.
Yeah, there seems to be a disconnect there. It just you have to look at these problems and you have to determine how serious they are. These small problems or these big problems, and I think this is the accumulation of a bunch of small problems that have built their way up into big problems for this defense, right? Some of them come from the front office because of how these players were supplied, and some of them come from the coaching staff, right? Like one of the big things I've been talking about for a while, duct tape solutions on the interior of the defensive line, that needed to stop. We need to invest some real resources at defensive tackle in order to keep this going at the rate that we want it to on the defensive line, because duct tape solutions eventually break. The duct tape solution broke this year. Had no solution for it behind it because your solution was these young guys, and your young guys weren't ready or good enough. So that's something that was a small problem that built up, right? You can't keep having these slow starts to the year defensively and then expect the defense to trust you, right? When every year they have to have a players-only meeting to fix the defense, that's going to eventually lead to why are we even having this dude in charge moments from this locker room, right? Which is going to lead to less buy-in, which is going to lead to less trust, which is going to lead to more bust. So that's what's been happening. I don't think Joe Woods is not trying to come up with a solution. And look, at this point, Joe Woods might have the solution. Nobody wants to listen to it, right? Like at some point, who the messenger is for the message matters. And he's not a good messenger for the message. So even if he's right, he can't be right because nobody wants to hear it right now from him. So that's just the cold truth of it.
All right, this is kind of interesting as well. Pro Football Focus, so top 3 in zone coverage rate for Week 10. Browns were in zone coverage almost 89, so almost 90% of the time. I can't figure out, and I get Hill and Waddle, but if you've got guys that are really athletic, that can run sideline to sideline, why don't you let them run sideline to sideline?
Because he's scared of getting beat deep, right? Like he's scared of getting beat deep. He's scared of that becoming a thing, right? He lets, because it's a two-headed monster this week with the Dolphins, right? If he lets Jeff Wilson go for 171, you're the guy who let Jeff Wilson look like prime Walter Payton on you when he's never looked like that ever in his life. Or if you're the guy who decided to man up on Tyreek Hill, look, I understand that Denzel can run, but Tyreek can run faster. There is no world in which you man up Tyreek Hill or Jay. They're both that fast, right? Like I like Greg. MJ should not be in man-to-man with those two because he's not nearly as fast as them. So I understand why he went to zone there because if you go man-to-man with those two, they're going to beat you. This is what Tyreek Hill makes his money on, and he's made a fair bit of money in the NFL doing this. His nickname's the Cheetah. He's literally given the peace sign to somebody who was ahead of him and then ended to play 10 yards ahead of him. Like, this is the type of speed here for him. So I understand why he would play like that. Still doesn't excuse what happened on the ground. Still doesn't excuse some of these defensive efforts. They have to find a better mix. They have to find just a better way of going about things. And even if this is like the right thing, like, right, if zone was the right decision to do, because Joe Woods is the one deciding to do it and his Q rating right now, his approvability score right now, or whatever we call that, his approval rate is so low that whatever he decides to do, even if it's the right answer, people going to talk about it like it's the wrong answer because they want him out of here. At this point, right? Like, it's clear they want him out of here. So, he's fighting an uphill battle. The defense is fighting an uphill battle, and it's just a mess.
All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show. Love the Browns. Just watched the show tonight. I listened to a caller say he was sick and tired of so-called Browns fans blaming owners and coaches. And then didn't he just turn around and blame Joe Woods? So why stick up for Stefanski and Haslam, right, if you're going to blame Joe Woods? Come on, Browns fans. We just got to do better. Ride it out with this team. I hope that better things are on the horizon. We can only hope. We get D. Watson back in a couple of weeks. Hopefully our defense can step it up a little bit, and hopefully a little bit of a better offense will mask a little bit of the defensive problems. Go Browns.
Yeah, that's the thing is, Quincy, with Watson, you might be able to outscore the other team. That's got to be part of the thinking at this point.
Man, maybe the defense plays better because they feel like the offense is going to be able to, score points. I don't know. Like, at this point, we just mad, right? Like, to that caller's point, I feel like people are just mad, and they're just expressing their anger and frustration for the team being 3-6, possibly looking 3-7 in the face. Nobody wanted to be back here, so everybody's mad and pointing fingers here. But it's important to remember, as much as it feels like we make the decisions as fans, we don't. So we don't have to get so out of shape about what certain fans are suggesting, because it's not like Andrew Berry is suggesting this and putting it on the ballot, and then we're going to vote as Browns fans, so we're going to switch to 3-4, we're going to fight. Like, those decisions are not made by us. You know, we have very little input, if any, in those situations. So it's important to remember that. Look, we love to argue about these things, but try not to get too bent out of shape about it, because ultimately this is not something to where even if you do change somebody's mind, it matters, because the only person's mind that's going to be changed or affected or swayed, Jimmy Haslam, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski. Those are the three minds that really matter on this team. Maybe some key players in the locker room, but ultimately what we feel and argue about on Twitter is not going to change anybody's minds in the front office, because they probably don't know we exist. And I'm not saying that to say you shouldn't have an opinion. I'm saying that to say, hey, you know, sometimes we don't need to get too bent out of shape. People just mad saying stuff, and we got no power on it anyway. So we don't need to get super upset when somebody says something, quite frankly, that's ridiculous, right? I've seen people get mad at, like, people suggesting that we should trade Myles Garrett. And that is a ridiculous suggestion. But it's a suggestion that does not matter, because we're not trading Myles Garrett, because nobody in charge thinks that. You know what I mean?
Quincy Carrier and I are going to take another time out. We will head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello, Cherokee Ray here from one of the Dog Pound founders. I think that if Jimmy and D and Barry and Kevin Stefanski turn the reins over to defense to Mike Singletary and give him full reign, I'm going to tell you what, then we're on our way to the Super Bowl. We need Mike Singletary here, and he would solve the problems. Thank you so much.
Appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, Mike Singletary is 64 years old and has not coached since 2020. But
I didn't expect Mike Singletary. That was a new one. Like, wow, Mike Singletary, man. He hasn't been in the NFL, what, 2016?
Yeah, and he was in the spring league in 2020. He was a defensive coordinator in the spring league.
I didn't know they had team names for the spring league. I'm figuring this out. You know, I thought that was more of a tryout kind of a situation.
No. They got uniforms and helmets and everything in that league, so we're good.
Very cool. Very cool. Good to know. Good to know that the spring football economy is rising. Look, I understand. We want it, like, this happens all the time when we're talking about getting rid of a coach or getting rid of a coordinator, and everybody goes to what they know. They want what they know. But I think it's more productive for fans to talk about what you want. What traits do you want out of somebody, right? If you're going to hire somebody for a position, I would hope the process would be, what traits do we need for somebody to be successful at this position, and what do we need to be changed, and what can this person bring, and all that. And then you look for traits. You don't necessarily go, I got 5 guys, this is who I want, right? Because it's not, that's usually how you end up hiring coach after coach after coach. So what are the traits that the Browns need to have on this defense that they're lacking right now? Who do you feel like can bring those traits? Not like specific individuals, but what backgrounds do you feel like would be most successful in bringing in those traits that you're looking for? And what in that, because the likelihood of us bringing in a defensive coordinator that we all know, very low. It's probably going to be some guy we've never heard of. So the traits are more important, because then when we say stuff like Mike Singletary, Joe, whoever else that we're going to throw in there, we're really just setting ourselves up to just like hold that against whoever the new guy is, because we're just going to keep acting like Mike Singletary would have been the greatest defensive coordinator of all time if he would have got hired by the Browns. But this guy, he's only okay. You know what I mean? So the traits are more important in the search than the names. The names can be very misleading because Mike Singletary might not want to coach anymore. The brother is 64 years old and had a whole career as a head coach and a middle linebacker in football. He might just be done. With the game at this point. So, again, the traits are more important than just like the specific names that we get stuck on.
All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason one more time before we head to break.
Hey, go Browns. Love the show. Love listening to your guys' opinions. Just have a quick question. So Jed Wills, I believe, is the year that they can decide if they're going to pick up that fifth-year option when this year's over or not, I think. But either way, I guess the question is, do you see them picking up his option or giving him a deal? I mean, I don't think he's going to become the highest-paid left tackle in football, but do you see a scenario where they sign him just to, to keep him? Because I don't feel like he's having a horrible year. I mean, you haven't really heard his name called, which is always a good thing, right? I just want to hear your guys' thoughts on if we extend or do we look to replace with Jed Wills. Go Browns.
Yeah, Quincy, I think he's played okay. I think he's been kind of an average left tackle. I think fans get upset because he was the 10th overall pick. So I think it becomes on how much would it cost you to extend him?
Yeah, he's going to be an interesting case because he's a tackle that you will be fine given the fifth year, but you don't necessarily want to give a long-term, expensive deal for, and he's a young player, so he might feel like he can get that in the free market. We'll see what happens with there. We'll see what Andrew Berry is able to negotiate, but it's going to be interesting. But the fifth-year option, I feel like, is a relatively easy decision for them. There's really no reason not to. It's not like Jedrick Wills has been at risk of being benched at any point this year, and that's really where you would go if it's not a quarterback, where you would be uncomfortable with the fifth-year option not being taken, right? If you don't think he's going to be a starter. But if you think he's going to start for you for the next couple of years, then, yeah, you take that fifth-year option.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also talk more about that upcoming game against the Bills, which has been moved officially to Detroit. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, with the possible Snow Bowl game coming this Sunday, here's a couple ideas for Coach Stefanski on either side of the ball that could be useful. On offense, I'd like to see the Wildcat implemented much of the game, using either Kareem Hunt or quarterback Josh Dobbs, who could also throw if the Bills are able to slow down our runner, keeping them honest. That extra blocker could be instrumental in this scheme. On defense, how about a fifth D lineman to slow down the Bills, freeing Myles Garrett and J.D. Clowney with some one-on-one matchups specifically for them to wreak havoc. Let's put the new D-tackle Styles to work immediately. Josh Allen will probably run the ball a lot this snowstorm. Let's hit him in the backfield. So a 5-2-4 alignment just might work. What do you think? We just need to concentrate on going 1-0 from now on each week. Easier said than done, but let's do it. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, the snow thing is no longer a big deal because it's going to be played indoors, Ford Field. 5 defensive linemen, yeah, you might be able to convince me to do that just because of the trouble you've had with the run.
You have to remember Buffalo's run tendencies aren't necessarily great. I think they've only ran the ball as a team, and including Josh Allen's rushing attempts, over 30 times 2 times. And Josh Allen runs the ball like 10 times a game. So they're not going to be a run-heavy team. I don't think this is the week you want to be caught with a heavy front defensively, just because, one, they don't have a big physical bruising back like that. Devin Singletary is their main running back. See, y'all got me saying Mike Singletary. Devin Singletary is their main running back at 5'7". Yeah, our new championship level defensive coordinator. But yeah, so that's not necessarily that much of a concern. What the concern is this week, especially now that this game's at Ford Field, is Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs and containing them, and also making sure that Josh Allen isn't getting these gigantic scramble plays on you. And when you do get pressure on Josh Allen, that you're able to bring him down. The emphasis this week is going to be on tackling. If they tackle poor, they will play poor. If they tackle well, they will play well. That's going to be the thing. But if they don't tackle, they're not going to win the game. And I don't mean like not technically tackle. I mean like if you don't tackle well, if you don't tackle at a high percentage, you're not going to win this game.
What are some of the other keys that you see? Take a look at this. So Josh Allen has thrown 2 interceptions in 3 straight games. The only other quarterback to have such a streak this year, it's just him. Browns, though, are 27th in the league. There's only 32 teams in turnovers, and they're 3-0 when they win the turnover battle. Those aren't – a lot of times stats like that are coincidence. Turnovers equal more possessions. More possessions usually mean good things for the Browns.
And it means less possessions for Josh Allen, right? That's what's important there, right? Is less times that Josh Allen can potentially score the football. And this Browns offense has been proven to be pretty good at capitalizing on their possessions most of the time. So that's going to be a big key in there, right? I think the Browns defense is more due for turnovers than they are just not getting turnovers because they're not good, because they have good enough personnel to be in position for these turnovers. They're just not getting them for whatever reason. And the turnover margin has been a tough thing for this team because the games we did get turnovers, we also turned the ball over as well. So that's all been a problem for the Browns. But I think that we'll see what Josh Allen does this week, right? Their back's against the wall in Buffalo, too, right now, right? They're in 3rd place. They're not where they want to be. They need this game as much as the Cleveland Browns do. So we'll see which Josh Allen that we get. But he's been inconsistent, especially in the late part of these games this year.
And again, it's important to note, he's got a UCL injury, so he has some pain and some nerve issue in that throwing arm. What about the Bills' defense? When you look at that, what do you see? And I mean, they're good. How good is this Bills defense?
They're really good up front. They're really long and versatile. They kind of remind me of what a couple of years ago the 49ers used to have, where they had just the length everywhere, right? Like long guys everywhere. And they were able to do things like stop the run with 5 down linemen. Now, the question this week is, hey, are you going to be able to stop the run with 5 people in the box like you have other weeks if you're the Buffalo Bills, because that's usually their strategy and they'll cover with everything else? Are you going to be able to get away with that when it's Nick Chubb and one of the better offensive lines of football? If the Browns take you out of that, what does the defense become? That's when they become a little bit more vulnerable. But they're a big physical unit. It's going to be up to the offensive line to play physical. They got to be more physical than they were last week. They got out-physicaled by the Miami Dolphins. Can't happen this week. If it does, their game plan is not going to work. But that's going to be up to the offensive line to see if they can battle back with this tough unit, because they got a lot of strength and a lot of length there on that Buffalo defensive line.
Gut feeling, do you think the Browns get it done, or are you extremely concerned like I am with this one?
I never expected to win this game for the last month. So I'm going into it feeling like relatively relaxed, not because I think the Browns have a great chance to win, but just because I just didn't think this is going to be one that they can get. I think it's more possible than I thought it was 2 weeks ago. We'll see what they do. But the fact that Buffalo really needs this one, the fact that Josh Allen has already had 3 bad games, makes me feel like the likelihood of him having 4 in a row is very unlikely. And I think that probably Buffalo gets back to form here, right? it seems almost too perfect for Buffalo to play bad this week. All the stuff that they're dealing with. Remember when they had that? This happened in the COVID year, right? They had that week where they couldn't practice but one time, and they played on a Tuesday, and everyone was like, "What's gonna happen with Buffalo? They're getting." And then they came out and beat the Titans by like 80. Okay, like I've read this story before. I feel like I know where this book goes. I hope it doesn't go in that direction, but. I don't have faith enough in this defense to be able to hold that path down like they need to.
Quincy Carrier, as always, man, good stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem, Dave. You have a great day.
All right, Quincy Carrier. Make sure you check out Untitled and Unfiltered Browns coverage. It's really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We turn our attention to the Cavs. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We turn our attention to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs won 8 straight earlier in the year after losing their opener. Now they've lost 5 straight. Went to Milwaukee, lost to the Bucks on the road. No harm in that. But J.B. Bickerstaff on what he's concerned about with the way his young team's playing.
We've got kind of a fat cat mentality. We went out and won 8 games in a row. Everybody was giving us love and praising us, and we got really comfortable. We are the team that won those 8 games, though, right? We are a really good basketball team. This is about maturation and growth from, a team as a whole. Not one guy's going to do it. Not 2 guys are going to do it. Understanding the difference between being the guy who's chasing and the guy who's being chased, and how hard it is to win in the NBA when you are a team who other teams expect to be good and expect to win. How individual players take that, how that's a sign of respect, right? But they're competitors, and they want to take that from you. So what you have to do every single night to show up and win, we're still learning that, unfortunately.
And with that, let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. And Sam, I think that's a really valid point. The Cavs aren't going to sneak up on anybody this year, without question, especially after they added Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, they're no longer, as JB said. Well, first of all, I've always noticed that JB's voice is a lot more hoarse when they've been on a little bit of a losing streak. But I will say that he's exactly right. This is a team that is suddenly no longer kind of the pleasant surprise of the NBA as they were last season. This year, the Cavs, people are taking them seriously and knowing that, when you face the Cavs now, they're not the homecoming game anymore. They're the team that you've got to give your best shot or they're going to beat you, So I think there's a lot of truth to what JB was saying in terms of, maybe they were resting on that 8-game win streak a little bit. I also will say mostly to me, the schedule just has done them no favors. They went on that brutal West Coast trip, and then you come home for one game against a Timberwolves team that's pretty good, improving, And then all of a sudden you go back out on the road against a team in Milwaukee that has championship aspirations. So, the schedule hasn't been their friend. I think that's a big part of their problem, but there's also some other of those issues that the coach explained.
What do you think's been the biggest difference between and you kind of knew it was going to be a work in progress because they are so young, but you've got that 8-game winning streak and now you got a 5-game losing streak. What do you think the biggest difference in those two things were back to back?
The most noticeable difference for sure would probably be their defense. Has not been as good at key moments of the game that it had been earlier in the season. It seemed to, the Cavs defense during that winning streak always seemed to get a lot better in the second half. And we saw it all the way to when they played the Lakers. If you remember that game on a Sunday afternoon, close at halftime, the Cavs really turned up the defensive intensity there in the third quarter and ran away with it. And they've kind of lost that a little bit, just haven't been as sharp at that end of the floor. They've had good moments, but haven't really put anything, together that's sustained for an entire quarter or 2 quarters where they are really suffocating the other team. So some of that, again, has to do with them being on the road. I'm sure teams, every NBA team throughout history shoots better at home, so it's harder to defend. I think that's the most obvious thing. Offensively, not quite as crisp as they had been, a little bit clunkier, kind of relying on, one guy to kind of break down people, as JB alluded to, whether that's Garland or Mitchell, as opposed to, operating as an entire unit. But that said, there's nothing glaring still. It's just they need to get a win so they can start feeling good about themselves again.
Well, yeah, and along those lines, Justin Rohn tweets this out. Cavs, it's their longest losing streak since November of last year when they fell to 9-10 after a 5-game losing streak. And again, Sam, there's no need to panic. I mean, some of the struggles were to be expected. When you are integrating arguably your best player into the system, you're going to need some time to figure it out.
Yeah, you factor that in, Dave, with adding Donovan Mitchell, then Darius Garland getting hurt in game 1, and then you go out on a really tough West Coast trip early. All those things factor in, and it takes a little bit of time. I think this would have gone smoother at all those games. Had the schedule been reversed and they played all those games at home. But that's just life in the NBA. Sometimes you got to go out on the road early, and you have tougher portions of the schedule. Looking at their schedule, this is one of the toughest stretches, if not the toughest stretches of the year, the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, that had something to do with it. And then you factor in Evan Mobley missed the entire preseason. So, the first week or 2 of the regular season were him kind of getting ready, and he's just now hitting his stride, it seems. So, you throw in all that, and then you throw in a 3-time All-Star with Donovan Mitchell. All of that takes a little bit of time to adjust, and you're not going to win every game when that happens. The good news is we saw Justin's tweet last year when they lost 5 in a row. They were 9-10. Well, because of their winning streak, they're still at 8-6, and they're still, top 4 in the Eastern Conference standings right now.
And they've gotten one of those West Coast trips where you face the Warriors and the like out of the way as well. Do you think JB Bickerstaff is thinking of tweaking the lineup at all, or do you not get that sense?
Not really, not in a panic sense. Karis LeVert has not been real consistent. His play has been pretty uneven. Followed up that 41-point game in Boston a few weeks ago with a 1-point game against the Knicks. So they would like him to be more consistent. His role has changed since last year, as they've asked him to be more of a facilitator. So, Dave, he has to balance his scoring mentality with his facilitating. He's done a really good job of keeping the ball moving, defending, playing hard. Problem is, he's kind of lost that scoring mentality a little bit, and they're going to need him to get that back because, if Garland or Mitchell or Mobley are off, they need a consistent 4th option, and LeVert certainly has that ability. So if he doesn't get to a point where he's playing more consistently in terms of scoring the basketball. I could see J.B. Bickerstaff, perhaps maybe moving to a Dean Wade in that role, maybe even Lamar Stevens, and let LeVert head the second unit. I don't think the Cavs are there yet. They're going to let this, look, the schedule gets a lot softer here. They're going to let this play out and see how it goes. There's really no need for a panic move at this time, but that's something to keep an eye on.
Another thing to point out is Jared Allen has missed the last couple of games. That'll hurt your defense a little bit. How much do you think they've missed Allen?
Yeah, defensively, you look at the game against the Bucks. Brook Lopez had a game-high 29 points. Well, guess what position Brook Lopez plays? The same one as Jared Allen. So, and not only that, it's just a matter of, you have that other scoring option. Jared Allen isn't looked at as a great offensive player, but he still manages 12, 14 points a game, keeps the ball alive on the offensive end, and just does so much defensively. When Mobley's out there by himself, like he was against the super tall Timberwolves, that's a tough, it's a tall task of a second-year guy, Mobley, to manage big players almost on his own. But, Allen gives them that, really, he's their best defensive player, and he gives them that extra, level of protection at the basket, which is a huge deal.
Yeah, especially with the smaller guards, Garland and Mitchell playing together. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we look at some big surprises and disappointments for the Cavs. We'll also kind of look forward. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Let's take a look at every NBA team's biggest surprise so far. This from the Bleacher Report. For the Cavs, they have Dean Wade making a leap. And the rationale, he's quickly becoming a critical contributor for the Cavs. 52.9% field goal percentage, 50% from three-point range, both personal bests by a mile since his first year. Sam, I saw immediately I thought he was a catch and shoot guy, and he's really kind of evolving into, a valuable member of a contending team.
Yeah, you look at last year how Kevin Love played. I would say that this year Dean Wade is kind of that guy. I mean, Kevin Love's still doing his thing, but Dean Wade also has kind of become that guy off the bench that's started a few games too. But he's kind of that guy, gives you some added size, really has helped replace the loss of, the trade of Lauri Markkanen. Just like you said, he's been more than a catch and shoot guy. He's showed versatility. A couple weeks ago, he had a massive steal that was very important. You don't think of Dean Wade as a great defender, but he stepped in a passing lane, made a steal, and went down and scored a basket at a turning point in the game. So, he's another guy who's been out for the past few games with a knee issue, and he's been a big loss. So, yeah, I would agree with that. One of the most surprising players in the league, and certainly the most surprising Cavalier, has given them a very big lift. And, they were expecting nice things from him, but I think that he's gone even above what they were assuming he would do this season.
All right, the same report had each team's biggest disappointment so far. And for the Cavs, crunch time collapses. Entering Wednesday, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Karis LeVert shot a combined 23 of 62, 31.7, had nearly as many turnovers, 10 as assists in crunch time. Now, my question to you, Sam, I can't argue with the numbers. Is this just those guys being young and trying to figure out how to play together with the game on the line? Because there's going to be a certain amount of deferring, and that's something you can't simulate that in practice.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's a matter of guys getting comfortable with each other, as you just said, and knowing when to defer, knowing when to shoot, knowing when to find their teammates in their teammates' favorite spots. Being able to read their teammates, especially guards with Garland and Mitchell. Those guys, it's not just about playing with each other and figuring out each other. They also have to, get readjusted to the big guys, or the Karis LeVerts and the Isaac Okoros and the wings, So there are adjustments there for sure. If you watch somebody like Mobley, he's been a lot better since Darius Garland came back, because those two have a connection. He still has to find that connection with Mitchell. And that's not to say Mobley's played bad. He's just played better with Garland. So that's just one small example of a young team, young players getting to know each other throughout the course of an 82-game season. Their crunch time collapses. They've had a few. The one against the Clippers was really bad. That Cavs had that game in the bag, just could not put it away, couldn't make a shot, kept turning the ball over like those stats said. So they've had a few of those. Season opener against the Raptors, obviously season opener, not a big deal. But yeah, some of those things are concerning. But again, the type of things that can happen when you spend a long time on the road, as the Cavs have done. I would think that those things would be more of a concern if we're still having this conversation next week after they've played 4 straight home games.
Yeah, and the other thing, having talent usually corrects those things, and they have some talent. So that's the good news is you got the talent. You're not searching for the talent. When you look at this, what do you think J.B. Bickerstaff wants to see from this team moving forward to get things back to where they were?
The first step's probably the defense. Let's clean that up. Let's shore that up and get ourselves in a position where if we're not making shots or we're turning the ball over a little more than usual, we're still in a position to win games because we're defending well. And, look, we all know this, that defense can overtake an uneven offensive performance from everybody. So, they were, I think, during the 8-game winning streak, ranked second in the league in terms of defensive rating. They need to get back up there. They need to get back to that level because, as we just went over, they're still figuring things out offensively. Well, that's okay. You can do that. You can take your time with that and have that as sharp as possible come playoff time. Defensively, though, that's where you're going to win games while you're making all of these adjustments and overcoming injuries. And, look, they went into Detroit and blew out the Pistons without Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And that's because they were practicing that defensive mindset. And that's what will lift your role players to help you win on the road. So I would think that would be JB's biggest thing, that he wants them to, kind of lift that back up and start feeling good about yourselves again because you're winning games.
And again, with the defense, little things. It's not like they don't have the ability to do it. It's kind of I think you used the word, the mindset. And I think that's probably what they're going to be hearing a lot of moving forward.
Without question. They dangle that junkyard dog award over the players to kind of get them to fight for that. So I would think they'd have plenty of motivation, just to. And JB, look, it's going to come down to playing time. JB's going to play the guys who are defending best when it comes down to it, because, like you said, Dave, they've got guys 1 through 10 who have proven they can play in this league, and it's all going to come down to effort at that defensive end. And I suspect these players have responded very well to his coaching. I suspect they'll get that corrected.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com as always, Sam. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Great stuff as always. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me, and we will talk to you soon.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Make sure you check him out. All things Cavs as well as NBA related from around the league. Does a great job. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.